Hello all and welcome to episode 81 of the Green Arrow and FPL podcast by Fantasy Football Hub as Chelsea, Man City and Liverpool demolish their opponents once again as wing-backs dominate and forwards continue to toil. My name is Fergi. A big welcome to my co-host Adam Hopcroft. Adam, what colour was your arrow in game week 12?
Yeah, it was a big green arrow. So I'm in the top 100k now. So I think I went up to 58k. I only actually checked my rank today. I knew I'd had a green arrow by the mini leagues and scores, but I'm trying not to focus on it too much this year, or let it own me too much, because I think you can get obsessed with it. So yeah, really, really good week. So I scored 85 points. I got the decision right. So the big dilemma for me going into this week, and I put it on Twitter on Friday, was do I start Rudiger or do I start Livramento? And I looked at, and I was for starting Rudiger anyway. I think the big reason is I even mentioned the goals that he'd scored against Leicester previously, set piece threat. So I'd mentioned those things.
Yeah.
I looked at about 4 or 5 different algorithms, including the hubs, and almost everyone was saying start Rudiger. And I thought, well, I can't go against my gut on that. And I would have been gutted if Rudiger would have scored and got a 14, 15 point and would have benched him. So I went with all that. But as we know, my luck with auto subs, Livramento come in anyway and got a nice 1-pointer. But to be honest, it was a great game week. My defense, so I had Steele in goal. I've never been so delighted to see my keeper concede in the 83rd minute.
I bet.
Watkins. Incredible. I'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the fun section about Villa, because I think there's a lot of relevant stuff from that. But delighted to see Steele concede. I then had Trent, Chillwell, Rudiger, Cancelo, and then Livramento come in for Rafinha. And then I had Havertz get a 3-pointer, which is all right. I could have hitted for Jota, but I'd have been 1 point better off. So no biggie there. Gallagher, who just keeps going. Amazing. Another assist. I think he created another big chance as well. But I think with Gallagher, he was a case of one where I was very close to selling. It's the old, I was so far behind the curve, I was ahead of the curve with him. That is it. That's a perfect example of that. So he was going to get bombed, and circumstance dictated that he stayed for that City game, and been great. And I think loads are clambering to get him in. But he's looking better and better, I think.
He's awesome player. He's such a fantastic player. And he's an apps. Well, he and Livramento have been absolute gems this season, haven't they?
Yeah, and he's just got, I love that he's got that burst into the box and always involved things. So for his price, and I just start him every week because I think he can return in any game as well. So, and then obviously Salah captain, which, I think it's hard to back against him at the moment. And then up front, I had Kane, and I actually got a goal from Tony.
Nearly had 2 as well.
Nearly had 2, yeah. So that was good to see. So all in all, a good week, and I'm not going to get too carried away because I think I had a few things going my way this week. I think one of the weaknesses of my team at the moment is I don't have Reece James, but I think this might be covered in the questions. So, do I bring him in? Do I not? So
he's actually started this evening in the Champions League as well. Interestingly,
and Chilwell hasn't he? So, yeah, but I think with United the weekend, I still think they'll go full strength versus United. It'll be Watford the game after. I think it'll be that game that's the risky one for both James and Chilwell. You would expect, and that's why I think squad depth is fairly important. So. Anyway, enough about me. I mean, you had a good game week as well. I think you weren't too far behind me.
It was okay. I had 78 points, which is good. I'd be happy with that normally, but the fact that I benched Rudiger and he was second on my bench, and I played him Bummo ahead of him. But again, it's just
I got in your head, didn't I? It was brilliant. It was brilliant tactic. I said, play Bummo, he's going to score. No, I'm joking.
No, he's second on my bench behind Livramento, and I don't know. It's obviously it's obviously again. I'm not sure it's a bad decision. I'm not as gutted about this as I was about Cancelo last week, because that was a mistake. I still think if you're banking off centre backs heading in corners to make decisions, I personally think that is they're so scarce. It happens. It's like once every what?
Yeah, 3% of goals,
10.
isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not that bothered about that one. But I had Foster with a lovely assist at the end. That is one thing that went my way. Trent, Chillwell, Cancelo. Chilwell's so unlucky not to get a 9-pointer. Only to get a 9-pointer. He should have had a lot more. And Bomo obviously only the 2. Yeah. And I was just looking at Brentford's fixtures because I was thinking, when can I sell him? But if you look at Brentford's fixtures in the next 4, they don't get any better. We'll have a look in a bit because we've got some decisions to make. But they're insane, their fixtures still. Jota, brought in for Havertz, which paid off nicely. Again, probably unlucky not to get a second goal. Incredible save by Ramsdale. Foden, who has been very disappointing so far. Son, who has been very disappointing so far, and Salah captain. Antonio again blank, and the Tony goal. But I was quite surprised because if I look at my team, I didn't really think that my team performed that well. But to get 78 and a big green from like 300k to 230k. But then we'll touch on this later about making ground. But just having players like Trent and Cancelo, their effective ownership is still quite low, and their overall ownership is still quite low, or kind of lower than you think, because it seems that like the whole world is on them, but they're not. And we'll touch on this later because I still think there's a lot of opportunity for people who are struggling to turn their fortunes around quite quickly. We've got a section on that later. Livramento.
It's the combinations, isn't it? So in isolation, they are highly owned, but when you combine them, so how many people actually have 4 big defenders at the back, for example, and all exactly. of that. So it's when you look at the combinations where I think you make a bigger difference. So I'd agree with you there.
Okay, so for any new watchers and listeners, you're very welcome. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen if you're watching on YouTube, and set the alerts so you don't miss our live streams, which is 7 p.m. GMT every Tuesday evening right here on this channel. Although we are going to have to mix it up over the next few weeks because we have midweek game weeks coming up. So Adam and I are going to have to come up with a bit of a plan of how we're going to get Green Arrow out before each game week. Also, if you do enjoy our content, please press the like button. It would be much, much appreciated. And as we are live, please feel free to join the chat at any time. Let us know your thoughts on the topics or the relevant sections, and feel free to ask some questions throughout. We'll try and jump in and answer a few if we can. Good evening, FPL Gaza and Ross Johnson. So FPL Gaza, just so you know, Adam, is FPL Geordie. He's changed his name. And they were talking about potentially trying to get song titles into the FPL chat this evening. So it might try and do that if I remember. Good evening, David Tillstone. Good evening, Oberis, Buckers, B. Blair, Jan, all the way from Finland. Matt Ivy, listening live for the first time. You're very, very welcome, Matt. Absolutely great to have you with us. Ryan Stewart, Nuisance PS, NW1, Phil Plum, Michael Brooker, FPL River, FPL Focal, who is still second in the world. He's absolutely flying. So very, very well done to you, and it's absolutely great to have everyone with us this evening. So this week,
the good thing about being second, it's the highest position you can be where you can still get a green arrow.
It's a good shout, that is, yeah. You're right.
Nobody wants to be first.
Imagine you were top. I don't every week. What colour is your arrow? Grey.
Oh, grey.
Boring.
Just another grey arrow. Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants that. Second's the best position to be, and hopefully you'll have a green arrow this week.
So this week, we are going to firstly have a quick look at what sort of team structure we should be looking at going forward, including whether a premium 5 at the back should be considered. As usual, we will look at the players we're eyeing up for the coming game weeks and have a brief discussion on managing bad game weeks, FOMO, and how to just enjoy FPL, which can be difficult when you feel that luck is against you or you have made poor decisions. We will answer a few questions from Twitter before looking at the Game Week 13 expected match results. We will take a look at the best captaincy options for Game Week 13. Again, probably a pretty easy one this week. We will hold our weekly competition and finally take a look at the top of the @FFH_Green Arrow Mini League. Don't forget, all the data we show and much, much more is available for you to use yourself at fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. You can use during the top link below for a 7-day free trial. So starting off then, and firstly, we've got a graphic up now for our YouTube watchers showing the players who have scored the most FPL points over the last 4 game weeks. Reece James top with 53, Salah second on 42, then Alexander-Arnold on 38, Cornet, or Cornet, I really need to understand how to pronounce his name, is fourth overall with 33 points, which is quite surprising actually. I know he'd scored well, but 33 points is fantastic. Smith Rowe 32, Chilwell 31, Gallagher 31, Rudiger 31, Cancelo 29, and then we get him down to I think his 10th position, Dennis on 28 before we reach a forward. And just a couple of observations on this. Firstly, there's only one player in this top 20 who is valued at over 8.5 million, and that is Salah. All the top 8 players are all defenders and midfielders as well. So we had some questions from Jordan, Alex, Kennever and Simon all around. Should we be looking at 5 at the back? So a lot of people are thinking of potentially taking out Livramento for either having that premium back 5, including maybe Diaz or maybe Regular or something like that. First, Adam, can I just ask your thoughts on a back 5?
I think there's nothing wrong with it. I think there's 2 things. One challenge you'll have with it is that the substitutes and the playing subs that can score well in defence. So like a 4.5 million defender is going to give you more returns than a 4.5 million midfielder and forward. So it causes you a little bit of issue squad wise in terms of, because then you're going to have to, if you want playing midfielders on the bench to come in and forwards, that could cause you an issue. But I think in principle at the moment, we've got 3, I would say, elite teams in the league. We've seen Conte is playing with quite advanced fullbacks as well. So there's definitely an argument for it. I've considered it as well. I think the only thing that I'm wary of is that the landscape in FPL changes very, very quickly. If you go back 2 weeks ago, we were having very different conversations. And I think people get lost in the moment. And I think one of the challenges that we're coming into at the moment is rotation season. So I'll give you an example of that. So we've just talked about Chelsea playing a strong team tonight. They will probably go strong against Man United. That I think that's fair to say. They'll go with a strong team. So if they go into rest players, are they going to do it the game after where they've got Watford, I think, and then they play West Ham? So they're probably going to use the Watford game. So I think it's important for us to have strong squads, and the likes of James, Chilwell, all of those, are great assets to own. But there's going to be times where rotation could kick in and kick us. So we talked about, I've got Rudiger at the moment. I think he's probably more nailed to play more, and I'm tempted to keep him just because of that. That I'll probably I might get 7 fixtures out of James over the 10 over Christmas, and I might get 9 out of Rudiger. And I think thinking about rotation and the impacts of that, and having flexibility as well with your squad, and it's not just the 5 at the back, it's how it impacts the rest of your team, how it impacts, your other subs. Have you got enough cover if 2 or 3 of your players don't start? Because that will start to happen, particularly as we're going into the winter months with fixture pile ups. Probably more likely that we'll have higher COVID infection rates. We've seen a few players miss with illness this weekend. So I think just try and stay flexible. I think, and having too much money in defence could, if things shift quite quickly again, it might be quite difficult to move your money around. So that's what I think at the moment, but there's no arguing it. I think there's some standout performances at the moment.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think in terms of 5 premiums, I think there's a lot of recency bias there, right? They've just smashed it last 5 or 6 game weeks, and they have, and they've done absolutely incredibly well. And I do think the Premier League has changed, which has potentially changed FPL a little bit from years ago, because I do think a couple of years ago I would have said, it's not sustainable. I do think it is sustainable. However, in this period of the season, as you've just mentioned, with, wherever it is now, 9 game weeks in 34 days or whatever, there's going to be a lot of rotation. And also within that, some teams, including Chelsea, I believe, have still got, interest in Europe and the Carabao Cup and things like that. So I think there's an argument to potentially stay with 3, but potentially, or even 4, If you wanted to move on Livramento, if you look at their fixtures now for Southampton, they're not the best, right? They've got some awful fixtures coming up. You could bank his value and move to someone potentially like Lamptey, maybe someone like Mitchell, maybe someone like Aït-Nouri if he keeps his place. So you are getting that kind of attracting threat. Even Reguilon, I think was he 5?
Yeah, it's a little. I was going to say Reguilon, a little bit more.
Emerson Royale is only 5 as well. But yeah, I think by going 5 premiums, you're potentially pigeonholing yourself into a structure which is perfect now. It has been incredible, but obviously in fantasy football we always have to look forward, don't we? And if you pigeon yourself into 5 and suddenly the clean sheets start to dry up, we always see more goals at this time of year and rotation strikes. It's where you're getting the funds from, and what you don't want is a front line of Tony and 2 4.5s, for example, or a 4.5 striker, a 4.5 mid, because then you have to use 2 or 3 transfers to kind of undo that. I think there is an argument for it, though, and if you look at players like Gallagher in particular, is a bit of a game breaker, really, in terms of you can play him almost as a third midfielder at times, and definitely as a fourth midfielder. And then there's players like Smith Rowe, potentially. Bowen in a few weeks, he's only 6.2. There are some incredible options which maybe make it more affordable than normal. But then if the big premiums do start to hit, you're in a mess. You can't get to Kane, Ronaldo, Son, or Vardy. The only thing if Salah goes off to African nations at the end of December, start of January, there is all that money to kind of share around your team, I suppose. But you will want him back as well. So I suppose it's just giving people some things to think about with their team. We're not saying there's a right or wrong answer. But I think it's pigeonholing yourself a bit much. And if I just look at my team this week, so I only had the 3 premiums playing. I had Rudiger on the bench, but I had Trent, Chilwell and Cancelo. So I had the lowest scoring Chelsea defender. But off the back of that, I still managed a big green. So, if you were hitting the 3 and still potentially just holding rank, getting a red arrow, I can maybe understand a bit more around you wanting to get more. But just holding 3 at the moment is good enough for a big green anyway. So I think 4 is fine. I think 5 is pushing it personally.
I think the 2 things that I would say which summarise this conversation is balance and flexibility. Yeah. And I think and just being able to react to things. And I think I can see the argument for 5, but it does make it a little bit tougher to react, to move money around. And I think I'm always wary where I've got too much money in any position. So whether I've gone too heavy up front, I just think balance it makes it easier to react. But you can't argue. I mean, some of the performances at the moment when you watch these fullbacks,
they're frightening.
They're like wingers with clean sheets, aren't they? That's the reality. And they're just all trying to outdo each other. It's just the performance levels are just ridiculous.
FPL Focal has just put in the chat that he's just had a look, and only 0.93 of managers have Trent, Cancelo, Chilwell, and James. When we look at it, only 1% of managers have those 4. It'll obviously be higher, in the top 10k and things, but that is incredible. We're just going to try and look at a couple of comments around this. Daniel Pern says, I feel like if you go big at the back, you're wasting transfers to move the funds later down the line.
Exactly. Yeah.
And FPL Gaza says, Adam is spot on. Never commit to 5 at the back, as you may want to switch from it sometime soon. And just have a look, see if there's anything else. Matthew Price, every time you come on the Fergie show, FPL Focal, everyone's asking you questions because Ferdinand is always chatting. I haven't got time to read the questions. Sorry, Matthew. We'll try and read some of the questions out as well. So do it now as it stands. And Matthew Price also says, Fergie, there's so many cheap forwards and midfielders that you can go to a back 5. Yeah, there's definitely no right or wrong answer, especially in the short term. It's more the medium and long term because we're very likely not going to use our second wild card for quite a while away. just to finish off this section, we have got a graphic up now showing the total points per million. So these are value players, the best value players. And again, it just goes to show. So 12 of the top 20 value players the last 4 game weeks are defenders, and only 2 in the whole 20 are forwards. And interestingly enough, they are both the forwards for Watford, Dennis and King. And I'm sure we're going to talk about probably King in particular soon, because it is worth reminding everyone that Dennis will be going to the African Cup of Nations at the end of January, for anyone thinking about bringing him in. So just to kind of bear that in mind there. But yeah, all the value at the moment. There's no value at front at all, is there? In terms of forwards, Adam, so obviously you're on Kane at the moment. I wouldn't say do you regret it, obviously, because he's got some fantastic fixtures, but do you wish your team structure was a bit more balanced towards, having more cash in defence and midfield, or are you happy?
No, I think I don't regret my decision at all. I think the other way I could have gone, and I think we touched on it before, was the Mane route was a potential of going with Salah and Mane.
Yeah.
But the big reason that I did it was, I backed Kane to score, and I still think in the next few weeks he will do. So I'm not worried on that. Is the team structure, because I just think in December with Sky Fantasy Football, you do a lot of planning. You look at your captains, you look at the game weeks, etc., and a lot of them were on, whether it's Kane, Ronaldo, etc. So I think having that flexibility and having a big striker up there is going to save me transfers further down the line. So whether I keep Kane, whether I go Ronaldo, Lukaku could be an option as well. So there's, I think I prefer this team structure. So I definitely don't regret my decision. What I would say is, like you've just been talking about, there's a lot of, and I've seen a lot of people say there's no value up front, and people saying strikers are there. I completely disagree with it, because the landscape changes so quickly, and what we've seen in 2 game weeks, game week before, and I won't get these stats perfect, but I think there were 4 strikers that scored the previous game week, and there were 12 that scored this game week. And I think we've seen some really, Josh King has been mentioned a few times. You've mentioned Dennis. I think they both, they're coming into some good fixtures in 3 or 4 game weeks time. You've got, Callum Wilson was unlucky not to score. You obviously had St. Maximin do well there, so some good value options there. I talked about Benteke a couple of weeks ago, and he looks good. So I think there are some value options up front at the moment. Tony scored again the weekend. I think where we're probably not seeing the value at the moment, I think anyway, is almost below. So I would say, and this is for across the board position wise, is that sort of 7 to 11, 12 million bracket, or 7. I suppose you could go up to premium if you took Salah and Mane out of it. Obviously, I'm excluding Trent in there, but if you look at it, there isn't really too much in that. It's almost would you call it middle price bracket? There just seems to be nothing, and I'm sure it will change, but it does make it quite easy to spread the funds a little bit, even if you have 2 premiums.
A lot of them are injured as well, Bamford and Calvert-Lewin and Wilson true. has been injured as well, so it has been barren.
You're absolutely right, yeah.
But they will be back soon, Well, I say soon, in the next month or so. We Live FPL says, I've already bought Dennis. End of January is 11 game weeks away, and they're going to leave at the end of December. So you're aware they're going to. It's all right. It is still a while away, but yes, it's end of December they're going to leave, or the first week in January. Alan Ward, he mentioned with you as well, waiting for Lukaku as well. This is the thing, is you can get to Lukaku or Ronaldo now in one move easily, can't you? Whereas I can't, exactly. For example. But I think I've made a decision that I'm much happier having 5 top midfielders, 4 top defenders, and just having the 2 up front. Because I'm not, the only way I look to getting Kane or Ronaldo is if basically Salah gets injured or he falls absolutely woefully out of form, and Kane really looks like a captain option, home to Brentford and home to Norwich. But at the moment he doesn't. But this
2 transfers as well, isn't it?
It's 2 transfers, even a hit, or I'm hoping to save this week. I think I'm hoping to save my transfer this week, And then even if I do need to make 3 transfers to get maybe, I don't know, Gallagher, Kane and someone else in to sort my team out, it's only a -4 then, and I'm up with you, in terms of the team. How sad is that I'll have the same team as Adam when I wildcarded after, and it will be more or less the same team as well.
I think we've done swings and roundabouts.
We have done swings and roundabouts.
One week, and I actually think your team's set up. I think you can definitely roll this week. I think you've got a very, very strong defence and midfield. I think if you've got Antonio and Tony up front, so that's fine. That's absolutely fine. That you've got a strong team, so you can definitely roll this week.
Cool. Okay, just catch up a bit with the chat. FPL Gaza asks, Adam, would you hold on to Antonio? This is one of the questions we've got later. Would you hold on to Antonio? Let's answer that quickly.
Do we to answer it now, or shall I save it for later?
Yeah, may as well.
Hold on to Antonio. Without seeing the whole team, I think there was a stronger argument to sell, because I think looking at some of the, and it depends. Let me just backtrack a little bit here. It depends where you want to get to. So what I'd advise people to do, Ben Crellin does this a lot. He does a great planner. My planner is even better, which has been completely copied from Ben and got a few different colours. I'll sell them for 25 quid a pop. There you go. But I think what I'd advise people to do, and there's some other good apps you can do this with. I think you can do it with Live FPL, FPL Review, etc. Is put your team in where you want to get to for 4 or 5 game weeks time. And I did that, and I've got quite a low team value. So for me, Antonio is going to make it quite difficult to work, because I'd have to pay 8 and a bit million for him. So I'm going to be looking at maybe the likes of Josh King and others, and maybe I might double up on West Ham's midfield. So I think it's very difficult for me to answer, because if you bought him for 7.5 million and you've got a higher team value and you can get away with benching him for a couple of game weeks in the next few, then it could make sense to sell. But if maybe you've not got the team value and the place that you want to get to in 3 or 4 game weeks time looks better without Antonio, then I would consider it. I don't think I wasn't too scared about selling him, and because I've watched him for the last 3 or 4 games, and I think he's actually playing okay, but I don't think the chances are coming to him as much. And I know people say the Liverpool game, he was a bit unlucky and against Villa and all that, but it's Bowen for me that looks the sharpest.
Yes, agree with that.
And he'd be the one that I would want. He's a bit cheaper, but I think it really depends on your team and where you want to get to, is what I would say.
Good answer there. Okay, so now we have the fixtures up from the fantasyfootballhub.co.uk fixture planner for the next 4 game weeks, and we're going to have a little look at which players we are eyeing up to bring in over the next 4. So top of the shop for the next 4, unsurprisingly, are Spurs. They're away to Burnley this week. I'm happy to to go without Kane and just see how he looks again. But after that, as we've mentioned a couple of times, they've got these absolute beautiful attacking fixtures: home to Brentford in 14 and home to Norwich in 15. Which, if Kane and/or Son do well this weekend, could be quite frightening, I think, for non-owners for those back-to-back fixtures there. Leicester's fixtures are good, so Leicester. I was really surprised actually how poor Leicester were against Chelsea. I know Chelsea are a fantastic team, but Leicester were all over the place. By the way, Ronaldo has just scored for United away to Villarreal in the Champions League. But Leicester...
Save it for game week 16, Christian.
Leicester...
Giano, rather.
Home to Watford, and then they're home to Newcastle in game week 16 as well. Newcastle have got some nice games. And right down the bottom, Watford, their next 4 are awful. So, we're talking about these strikers but from game week 16 onwards, Watford's fixtures look really, really good. So at the moment, in terms of what you said about your plan to see where you want to get to, at the moment, mine include definitely a Watford striker and very likely King, just because I want to hold him for quite a few weeks. Villa's look tough for the next 4. They include City and Liverpool. West Ham's are also not the best. So all this talk of Antonio. And just to touch on Brentford's, actually, they're home to Everton. Then they've got Spurs, Leeds and Watford, which is why I'm finding it very hard to get rid of Mbomo, even though he's so unlucky again. I mean, 7 times at the post this season, and Tony's at the follow-up. He would have had the assist. Tony would have had another goal.
It was over the 2 game weeks, and I'm not saying whether it's luck or not, but those 2 decisions, excluding bonus, cost owners of both 15 points.
Yeah, this is it.
So,
and I'm an owner of both, and it hurts.
I know, yeah,
it hurts. But there we go.
Did you think Tony had a brace when Rico Henry scored?
No, not quite, because
were you like celebrating it?
No, this time I was. Where did I see it? I was actually at a party on Saturday afternoon, 80th party, but I got the notification on my phone because I had signal, so it was it wasn't quite that bad this week. But again, Brentford scored 3 goals, and Boma was the furthest player forward, not involved. It's frustrating, but you just got to roll with it. And City's also still look good. Obviously, Diaz had his rest this week, but you'd expect him to play kind of 9 out of the next 10.
Of course you would.
So I think transfer-wise, the first thing I would say is that if you haven't got 3 premiums, and I would include Trent in this because Liverpool's fixtures are also very good. They just go on and on. I would say if you haven't got Trent, Cancelo, and a Chelsea defender, I think the priority needs to be to fix that in your team. I think that for me would be the number one. And then I've got a list of players who I am interested in, based on the fixtures and based on different things. Adam, who are you eyeing up over the next 4 game weeks?
It's not too exciting for me. So I look at those fixtures, and I think other than Spurs and possibly Man City in the top 5 or 6 teams on there, I'm not really interested in any of those teams. I think Newcastle have got some good fixtures now, but they turn quite horribly, so it's going to be an in and out job. I'm just not into that. Leicester, I think, have been unpredictable and haven't been great. Brentford, again, haven't. I personally, I think they'll struggle because I think since they've lost their goalkeeper, he seemed to have a real calming effect on their team, and they're letting in a lot of goals. That puts a lot of pressure on the team to go out and score. And so I think they'll struggle. I mean, they might be all right for scoring goals, but I'm just looking at it. So the players that I'm considering, so I'd go down as far as, I suppose, Liverpool and City have got a few. So I'm looking for a Havertz replacement. So I suppose Diogo Jota is perfect for that if he's fit. City have got a few options: Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, obviously Foden. I think I can afford exactly. So there are some options there. I mean, I could go for the Burnley player, Cornet, whatever we're going for. I think he's worth consideration. But I think out of all of those options I've just mentioned, for me, the priority is to treble up on Liverpool. I think they look so good going forwards. And just every stat I look on, every expected stat and every XG stat, Jota is right in there. And I just think, for me, it's a really easy transfer to Havertz to Jota. So that's priority. I think for Spurs, it would be one of the fullbacks, probably Reguilon. I haven't got it in my plan at the moment, but that could be an option. But I think other than that, I don't think I'll make many transfers over. I think Jota in the next couple of weeks. I don't think I'll do much else.
What about, so for those who potentially can afford him, because we've got the fifth highest scoring player in FPL all season is under 5% owned, which, if you think about it, is absolutely bananas. But if you could get to Mane, obviously people aren't on Mane because you wouldn't captain him ahead of Salah because Salah's just been so explosive. But the double up has got to be a realistic option now, right?
Yes, I can't argue against it logically, but I think there are a couple of issues with it, and this is firstly, I'll tell you, because I'm a big fan of Mane, so I can't. I'm just going to put the counter argument and probably the reasons people haven't gone there. Number one is Diogo Jota is however much cheaper, 4 million cheaper,
4.5. Yeah.
So there's a big difference, and you're not getting much difference in output, which you can spend elsewhere. I think particularly with Firmino injured. The second is it deprives you of another captain, a genuine captaincy or premium option from a different team. Now, it's fine at the moment, the way Salah is playing, but, we're not going to say that that's going to last forever. So, and I think the other thing as well is I've got the African Cup of Nations, so that's going to be 2 transfers out for you to think about. And I know it's a few game weeks away.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
But if you have Jota, you could just keep him through that, couldn't you? And he's sort of play that you could get away with benching. I also think as well, Klopp has got form for rotating in December, which means that both Mane and Salah may miss a game each. So again, you could end up, that just doubles the impact. So that would be the reasons. I think he's an incredible player. I think he's looking good at the moment, but I think it's there's just better value elsewhere considering we have Salah. Obviously, if we didn't have Salah, it would be a no-brainer.
And Trent is just a no-brainer as well, and he's a different beast this week. This season, both he and Cancelo and Reece James. I think we saw a lot from Chilwell last season anyway. Cancelo, Trent, and Reece James have just got this. They're just so, they're so attacking. They're so far forward. Their heat maps are just absolutely insane, aren't they?
Yeah, if you had to pick one, so you're a man, you're a manager, and this is from a football, not an FPL perspective. You can have one of them. Which one would you go for?
I think Cancelo is the best footballer.
Agree,
and that's why I go for him. His assist on the weekend says it.
It was something else, wasn't it?
But he's also a great defender. So he does drift inside, don't he, into that kind of inside left part when he's playing left back. So he drifts inside and plays a lot of the game there. He tends to have the most touches, or one of the most touches for City. He very rarely lets a pass go. He's also a beast of a defender. His attacking instincts are incredible. He's rapid. He's just got everything. He's just a complete.
I think I'd agree.
He's just a complete modern footballer.
He's great. He's great to watch, isn't he?
Oh, he's unbelievable. And
I've not.
And when you don't own him, that's the thing. When you don't own, I benched him last week. It just, I was paid. I mentioned this at the start of the season, and we'll touch on this a little bit now when we talk about enjoying FPL. Is I hate, and it kind of ruins my enjoyment for matches when you've got players who you probably should have, but you haven't been able to get to, and they just running riot, and they just shoot in, and they look awesome. I had it with Foden against Brighton a few weeks ago. I mean, he scored 2 goals, Foden, which were quite fortunate, but he could have scored 4 or 5 every time he got the ball. I was just like, oh my goodness. And like Alonso was like that a lot when he's peak Alonso. Chilwell's like that. Reece James is like that. Trent is like that. They're just, my goodness, they're awesome. And Matthew Price correcting me. I keep saying Cancelo. I should say Cancelo, I think. So I will try and remember. I say them all wrong. Cancelo, Jota, and a couple of others as well. Apologies for that. Just a couple of other players, Adam, just before we
go for it.
Move on. So Palace assets, have obviously been really good. I'll very likely be looking to get Gallagher in. I think probably not this week, but maybe next week as part of that. Shift around in my team to either get someone like that Kane, Ronaldo, Price, or something else. But what about Benteke? Because I'm not a massive fan. I don't really see the appeal. And there's also people like Mitchell as well who've been playing well. What are your thoughts on Palace assets?
I like Benteke, and I watched him for Belgium the other week actually, and he played really well. And I think you've got to take away the sort of the previous seasons, because if you remember the end of last season, he looked quite good as well.
Yeah.
And he started this season well. I think he had a couple of injuries, but he looked good against Newcastle. He's so dominant in the air. He's a great focal point. I think his minutes, I don't think he's 100% nailed. So I think it's possible over Christmas he might play 3.5 games instead of 4. And I think depending on who the opponent is. But I think if teams sit back, they'll use him as a focal point. He's just so good in the air, and I think he's a handful for anybody. I mean, he's getting chances, and he's a good price.
Yeah.
So if you compare him with Tony, for example, he's looking a better option for me. And
would you move Tony for Benteke? You just had a question off Sam O'Brien.
Would I do it? Again, it depends on how your team's set up. If you've got a really strong team at the moment, I'd possibly consider it. Yeah, I would. Yeah, it's team setup. If you've got a perfect team and the luxury to make that transfer, I like how Benteke's looking at the moment. That said, we'll come on to Villa a bit later on. I think that'll be a tough game for Palace this week. Mitchell, I think it's another option, but I think there's just too many good options in defence. So for me, it would be, I think Gallagher is the best option, but I really do like Benteke as well. And he's someone I'm considering alongside Josh King at the moment for a couple of game weeks time, because he just seems to get chances every time he plays.
A few people agreeing that Cancelo is the best option. Nuisance BS says, and We Love FPL says, absolutely right. This has been the case for me with Cancelo. I haven't owned him all season, and it's an absolute killer. And Phil Wright says Cancelo is killing me. We Love FPL says Salah is averaging 10.4 points per game.
It's mad, isn't it?
Absolutely crazy.
And FPL, he could have had more the weekend.
He could have. And FPL Dream says, hi people, how are my two favourite experts in FPL? I hope he's talking about us, maybe not.
Probably about Black Box.
You're on the wrong stream, buddy. No.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Up on screen now, we've got the predicted points from the Hub Predictor for the next 4 game weeks, which interestingly, we got to remember that so I have tweaked the expected minutes on the predictor, so it's going to be a lot more,
cheers for doing that.
A lot more reliable now, but it is interesting that it's dominated up the top, well, in the top 5 or 6 by attackers still. So Kane is still top over the next 4 game weeks with 30 points. Salah 28, Son 27, Vardy, who obviously home to Watford this week, 25 points. Foden, interestingly, is up there. He's very high on 24 points. Cancelo then Mane, and then you get Trent, Chilwell. Bruno and Ronaldo enter as well due to their fixtures, I would guess, from game week 15 onwards. Then we have Wilson, Aubameyang, Tony, Reece James, Mbomo, Diaz, Rudiger, Walker and Lukaku. So lots of defenders in the top 20, which you don't normally see lots of defenders there, but obviously they're making their presence felt there. So interesting.
Yeah, no Diogo Jota.
Not at the moment, no. He isn't in there.
Or was that a minutes thing because of injury, possibly?
I will,
because you would have done it pre-press conference.
We'll have a look at his minutes. So we've got what we got planned for Jota. We've got 75 minutes planned in for Jota for the next few weeks on average. Which his last 4 games, he's played 90, 12, and then 76 and 76.
It seems about right. Yeah, I'm still surprised he wouldn't be featuring, even with 75 minutes.
No, agree. That's an interesting one there for you there. So that is the Hub Predictor. Okay. What we're going to do now is just have a bit of a chat around managing bad game weeks and just making sure that we enjoy FPL. Things like FOMO and bad weekends and feeling bad. It's not great, and we're just going to have a bit of a chat just to confirm that Man United won 2-0. Jadon Sancho scored 90th minute for United, so a good start for those. But yeah, just in terms, Adam, we've talked about this in patches a few times, but I'll just kind of start us off, I suppose, in terms of a few things. Like I say, I think so far this season with my team, I made one, I think, mistake in benching Cancelo last week. That was a mistake. In all the other ones, like benching Rudiger this week and taking out Jota before he hauled and bits and pieces. I think the reason why I don't get kind of, stressed or feel bad about it is because I've got a decision-making process and I have a plan. And when I kind of, when I line up all these factors in terms of making a transfer or captain call or bench decision or whatever it is, I'm normally quite happy, in terms of wherever the outcome is. You can get frustrated at poor luck, which, I think I've had a bit of hard luck with, maybe on Bomo and Foden and Son and all this kind of things. But then on the same note,
do I need the violin or
you do the violin? But then, kind of on the same note, I've brought them in, kind of knowing the risks around, minutes, knowing the risks around Tottenham's form, knowing all this stuff, and I just think it hasn't quite paid off yet. I'm hoping it, I'm hoping it will. So, just in terms of this stuff, Adam, in terms of managing bad weeks, just making sure you enjoy FPL. What are your key couple of points to start off with?
Well, do you know what? I'm going to read a tweet from the editor. So he posted. It was a really good and well written tweet, and I think I was going to come up with my own words, and I thought, do you know what? He's written it so well, I'll just use his. So for those that don't know, he's a top manager. I believe he's in the elites. He's the Elite 64. So he wrote, so it goes like this. So it goes, my advice, when you're having a bad run, as I did game weeks 1 to 7, tune out of socials and the FPL world between game weeks. And he's put read, run, cycle, walk, get outside, watch TV, call a loved one, particularly the older ones, and log back in close to the deadline. It can help turn things around in FPL, believe me. And I just thought he's absolutely spot on, because I think for me, what I've been in this situation several times, and I think I've got so much better at dealing with it moving forwards. And I would do a lot of what he's just said there. And it's if I'm having a bad time and things aren't going my way, I will take a step back, because I think it allows you, and I'll do other stuff that I enjoy doing. I think it allows you to see things more clearly, and I think it also allows you to appreciate there's other things in life as well, and you don't get consumed by absolutely everything in FPL. Because the worst thing is with FPL is if you have a bad game week and it controls your life, you never want to be in that situation. I think there'll probably be people listening that have been there. I've definitely been there, and it's the worst thing ever. We did that. It was one of my favorite podcasts we did pre-season last year, the Obsession one. I was talking about some of the stuff in there, and I think it was towards the end of last season for me where I learned to really manage this. So, and I actually finished last season quite strong. But there were certain things that I changed to really get my enjoyment back in FPL. So I found, and I don't know how many people in the chat, some people probably like getting the live score alerts every 2 seconds. You've mentioned you did, and I think you see it, I think you cope with it a lot better than I do. What I found is there were times when I was on a Saturday completely glued to my phone, checking it every 30 seconds. Why is no goal? Was it who got and it put me on edge. And I just found that I was completely consumed by that. So I've made changes, and I think for me it's working really well. So I try on a Saturday at least. I try and avoid all the football scores. I may watch the 12:30 kickoff, but after that, I try and avoid all of the football scores, and I'll watch match of the day the following day. Sometimes I'll check them in the evening, but even that suspense, it just adds that little bit of excitement, and far much more excitement than checking the scores every 2 seconds. And it's exhausting, it's tiring, and it really got to me. The weekend, and this wasn't, and I said I'd mentioned a fun element to it. So I took my daughter to Villa Park the weekend. I tweeted a picture, and no, I was not the mascot in the picture. So I know, yeah. I just, as soon as it was one of them, as soon as I tweeted it, I knew the response I'd get. But I thought I'll go with it. It's fine. So, but it was, it was an incredible day because I didn't check my phone once. I actually deliberately tried to avoid all the scores, and I was probably lucky the fact that Villa didn't mention them at half time or full time. And I think I overheard a couple of fans talking about United got thrashed, which never a bad thing. And do you know what? Again, I was completely focused on the day with my daughter, and it was just I've just got to the point now where the scores don't control it. The other thing as well is I know I can't impact it. As much as I'd love to run on as a sub and score knock Tony out the way and put it in the net or whatever. That's just, you can't impact it after you've made the decisions, after the deadline's gone. So I prefer to have as little time as possible finding out the outcome. So I like to do it in one hit, and then I can, the other thing is, I think with Tommy, and who got the assist made this point before, but when the games were really dragged out last year, you're constantly getting beaten up every 2 seconds. It's what it feels like. So what I find with this again is I have that one hit, and because you've got that one hit, the chances are there's good and bad in there. That's the reality of it. So last weekend, for example, I had Sanchez getting sent off. I had Chelsea conceding. But then I had Tony blanking against Norwich. But then that was balanced out with Conor Gallagher scoring, Havertz scoring. And it was probably 3-3 in like the good and, I think I had 6 players in the good and bad. But because I wasn't checking it every second, I didn't have to feel every single emotion, just doing it once. And this has worked for me. This has worked well. Everyone's different. So I'm not saying this is the solution for everyone. But I just find now that being able to take a backward step from it, and it probably means I don't watch as much football, or football that I watch I'm really focused on. I'm not on my phone. So I think I watched the City and the Spurs game on the Sunday, but I've found it's had a positive impact on me, because I'm not checking everything every 2 seconds, and I'm actually enjoying my weekend with my family, and I'll just check the results in one go. So that's worked well. I'd recommend the match of the day challenge, even if you just do it for 1 week. I think it's a good thing to do. It adds that little bit of excitement, and because I think one of the problems we've got now is we get things instantly. We get even the tables update instantly on live FPL, so I think it's good to add a little bit of that. I'll wait and see what happens. You get that suspense is probably the big thing. So yeah, that's what I've done, and it's I think for me it's had a really, really positive effect in my FPL experience, because I'm not spending as much time focusing on the outcome. I'm not saying before the deadline I probably still put the same amount of time into it, but it's after the deadline. I'm like, I can't control it. I'll check it on my own terms later on.
Yeah, I agree. And that Saturday afternoon period, so I always go out. I always do something, roughly between 12 and 12 and a half, 4 or 5 o'clock. And
yeah.
I've purposely done that because, it has in the past affected me and affected the enjoyment and mood of my whole family as well. Because if a dominant sort of person, in terms of I'm a father in a household, is in a stinking bad mood and feeling down wherever else, you can't help it sometimes. You sometimes do like snap or get annoyed at the at the very shortest or smallest thing. And conversely, the other way then is when if my differential captain scores a hat-trick, I'm out buying Chinese and get the balloons out, and here's your pocket money, kids, and whatever else. And it's not good in terms of how it can affect you. So I made that decision a couple of years ago, and I'd go out practically every Saturday now. If I've got nothing planned, I'll take my boys out down anywhere to we'll go and watch a football match over the local thing, or we'll go down the pool hall and have a couple of hours playing pool, or or whatever it is. So say I was at a party this Saturday, I was away the weekend before. And for those who haven't tried it, for those who haven't done it, in terms of just checking the results or the scores at 5 o'clock, when you do have a stinker, then you look and you say, I've got 28 points. Like when you're living through that whole 2 or 3 hours, that 28 points feel like it consumes you, takes up 90+% of your thinking time, of your your mental state and all this kind of stuff. When you actually see 28 points in front and you think, oh, that's a bit of a bummer, it goes down to maybe, for me anyway, maybe 10% of my mood. It's just like, oh well, I'll sort it out in the morning. There's nothing I can do. You can't you can't impact it, and even that is absolutely massive. Couple of experiences that we've got in the chat of ours. So FPL Gaza, FPL can be a mood killer. I've struggled with bad seasons in the past as some of the best managers in the world, like Mark Sutherland and FPL General and Matthew Price, definitely affected me. Adam wrote Game Week for the Game Week. Sorry, nine red arrows. I mean, in the past 3 weeks, I've had green arrows, and I got so down about it. James says it resets your FPL brain, but not thinking about this for a while until a day before the deadline. And Henry save all. I had 28 points in 2 players on the bench this week. Rudiger and Dennis, just got to laugh it off and move on.
Exactly.
Just some tips we had on Twitter as well. So I put out a tweet here just asking for a few, tips on how people do manage it as well. And Louis put, set your best team, log out until the deadline day so you don't make any rash decisions. I think, Adam, you've learned that early this season, haven't you? It doesn't making those last minute ones.
Exactly.
Simon Ashby. Oh, sorry, go on.
Rash decisions galore at the start of the season, but go on, go with Simon.
Simon Ashby say, make all your transfers while dressed as John McClane from the epic Christmas movie Die Hard. You will feel invincible. FPL Welsh Savvy, and I think this is a really good one, and we kind of mentioned it already, and some people in the chat have mentioned it as well. If you're worried that one player is going to destroy your rank, you should probably own them. Add fun, potential explosive differentials to boost your team up the rank. So, those who are saying, I haven't got Cancelo, he's ruining my season, get him in. Just get him in for, even if it's a hit, even if it's a -4, just do it. You will feel so much better, I guarantee it. And if they're hurting you that much each week, because these are not low owned players either. He's like 30% owned now, I think, Cancelo, and he's in incredible form as well. Just get him in and save yourself that bloody heartache. Jordan says, I'll take something that I said last season, actually. Game week rank. The only game week rank that matters is the game week rank in game week 38, not now. And Jordan said, I've done this myself. Haven't had a slow start, but that bit of advice helps after a bad game week. Absolutely. And for those who play other fantasy games, that is massive, is that we don't even look at, we don't even use the terms red or green hour in the fantasy games. Each game week is just part of a bigger it's just a piece of the puzzle for the bigger picture for your score at the end. And this is why I kind of struggle a bit with FPL in terms of this. I know our podcast is called the Green Arrow, right? But this whole obsession about getting a green arrow every week, a lot of the time it doesn't matter. It's after game week 38 where you are. It doesn't even matter if you have 20 red arrows in the season. If you still got the overall rank you want, that is what matters.
Exactly.
AD Tour says, if you feel like you made the wrong transfer, it's okay to move them out. Nick, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we snuff it. Sid James, love that. That's his Christmas sort of a tip there. So like that. Fantastic stuff there, from the Twitter community. FPL Rubber Ducky is in the twat as well. He said 100%. I said in the twat then in the 100% great advice. And Anthony G, everyone needs to remember it's just a game. And as Adam alluded to, focus on everything real life more. It's affecting you too much. A lot of these things are easier said than done, but I do think advice you can practically take in terms of it is switching off on that Saturday afternoon, because especially for those of us in the UK, we can't watch the matches anyway, right? Unless you do these
exactly
illegal streams. Just a couple of you go, mate. Sorry.
I was going to say there's one other thing I want to mention, which I think we get, particularly those on Twitter, get hung up on, is we always compare ourselves to everyone else. So we're always looking at everyone else's team. And as the famous quote says, so comparison is the thief of joy. It completely is. And when I'm looking at other people's teams, they might not look as well set as mine. In fact, the last 2 game weeks, I could say that, but I've done fairly well and probably better than a lot of people have, or I thought had better teams. We all get dealt, or we all have different hands that we're starting with. So when you see comparisons, you don't know, a lot of the time how many transfers they've made. Their team might look better on paper, but then they might have the plans going forward. For me, it's about focusing on your own team and making the optimal decision for your own team. And that's it. That's all you can do. And I think you can get sidetracked looking at others, getting jealous of others, worrying about ownership. Just a lot of the time, and this is where I think taking a step back or logging out and logging back in on the Friday, it's usually an obvious decision to make. there's a lot of the time you can look at a team and think, do you know what? That is the obvious
How about
decision.
Jota this week for you, Adam?
At the moment, yeah, exactly. But it's exactly that, and I think you had the similar last week. But a lot of the time, it's we're taking so much information that we'll forget the obvious decision, or we'll get clouded and pushed away. So I think that's often why that advice is really good about taking a step back, because you just make the sound decision. You're probably less hit averse, and those sort of things I think tend to get you back on track, is what I would say.
Agree. Really good advice there, Adam. I just wanted to add a bit around the template as well, because there's been a lot of chatter on the template and how it's ruining the game, and the template is so strong wherever else. But I've actually had a look at the template, and I've also had a look at the top scoring players and the top owned players, and I've just got a few bits. So maybe hoping to give some hope to a few people who are maybe struggling to work out how to maybe improve their rank and to gain ground, because it's very easy to get stuck in a hole. And as you said, comparing against teams on Twitter, which teams on Twitter, generally the teams that get posted on Twitter are posted by engaged managers who are doing well, right? That's kind of how it is normally. But just a few bits here. So in terms of defenders, so Trent is the highest owned defender in the game, but he's only 33% owned, which is low when you consider that Antonio is like 47%, Salah is 72%, and we have seen Trent in the past, indeed, owned by over 50% of the game, and also James Chillwell and Cancelo. So all these they're absolutely smashing the game to pieces at the moment. They are all under 30% owned, which is very, very low still. So I suppose the advice there is, or the kind of hint there is, it's not too late to jump on these boys. They are. Of course it isn't. You can still make really good gains in midfield, right? So we mentioned Salah, so he's like 71% owner or something ridiculous like that, right? It's a 10-man game at the moment, right? Or or a 40-man game. But all midfielders, aside from Ben Rama, all midfielders are under 25% owned, right? And also listen for a list of these players who are under 5% owned, right? Sadio Mane, we mentioned earlier, right? Jared Bowen, who is looking very good and has a really good run of fixtures coming up as well. Cornet, earlier, who we mentioned, who is the fourth highest scoring player in the last 4 weeks. Fornals, who is having a tremendous season so far. Trossard is 3% owned. He's looked really, really good moving forward as well. KDB at the moment, I know he's got COVID, right? But at the moment, KDB is 1.7% owned. Marcus Rashford is under 1% owned. And, these are more for players who are coming up, right? And also, Bernardo Silva and Zaha are under 10% owned as well. So if you look at all those players in defensive midfield we've mentioned, you can't say that none of those players are good options now or in the near future. And this is before we get to forwards, right? So the top 10 owned forwards, look at this: Antonio, Ronaldo, Vardy, Tony, Saint-Maximin, Hwang, Jimenez, Kane, Ings, and Jesus. Now, how many goals between those 10, how many goals have been scored in the last 2 or 3 game weeks? I haven't got the exact number right, but it's not many, right? Every other forward in the whole game is under 10% owned. So that to me says, when you kind of look at it like that, there is so much opportunity to still make so much ground with all the best options in the whole game. And if you look at the template, it's actually, the template team at the moment probably isn't actually performing very well, because a lot of the players who are performing well, a lot of the players in that list I've talked about, right? Obviously you've got Salah and the premium defenders, which is fair enough. But after that, it's much of a muchness, right? So hopefully that just gives a little bit of hope to people that all these players who we think are so far out of reach, they are within reach. And if you get to that team, you'll still make gains. And just a couple of other bits around playing the game moving forward. And this is just how how I play the game. In terms of looking to climb, slowly climb and try and maintain a decent rank. Right? It's I've said this a lot, but choosing your battles, and for this game, a lot of this game for me is about managing yourself and knowing when to gamble.
Yeah, of course.
In terms of making that move that you probably know you shouldn't make, and it's having the discipline to not make the move and try and look for the positions where when you do gamble, there is potential really high upside but quite low downside. And there's a lot of those. An example for that, and it didn't work out, but it is an example, right? This whole Havertz versus Salah in game week 9. Those who bought Havertz in because he was very, very low owned had quite a big ceiling that week. But those who gambled on the captaincy for Havertz put themselves in a very compromising, a position there. And as it worked out, obviously we weren't to know how it worked out, right? But in that position there, bringing in Havertz just by himself gave you the potential for really high upside. But by captaining Salah, who was by far the highest owned captain, you limited your downside. And that, and that way of playing usually yields pretty, reasonable results and protects your rank. And just on that as well, in terms of playing consistently and not backing these massive outsiders all the time. I always compare it to like horse racing, right? If you back outsiders constantly, you won't succeed long term. The constant winners in in any kind of prediction or gambling, or whatever you want to call it, are the ones just back the favourites all the time, because they're the ones who will come in the majority of the time. So just a few other bits and pieces there from me, on maybe how to climb back and and kind of manage your rank a bit more. Anything more on that, Adam, at all around?
No, I think you've made some really good points. So no, nothing else from me.
Fantastic. Okay, let's move on then. Now, and we've had a few questions in off Twitter. We had quite a few, but I'll try and pick some of the questions that we haven't answered so far. I did see one earlier, sorry, in the chat. I'll see if I can find it. I'll try and find it now. Matija, so would you consider selling Livramento? So we kind of answered this earlier, but would you sell Livramento now for his difficult run for someone like Lamptey or Ben Johnson or someone else?
I don't. I'm getting a bit. I'm sounding a bit like a broken record, and I apologise for that. But it is team dependent, and I think with any transfer, I don't think it's a high priority transfer at all.
No, it's not.
I think if you're nicely,
agree,
yeah, if you're nicely set up, that move could make sense. But again, I'm not a fan of Lamptey, so I wouldn't go to Lamptey personally. I think he looked all right the weekend, but I think he'll get rotated, and I just think there's other players I'd prefer in that price range. I'd probably prefer to keep Livramento, but I think it's just if you have the luxury of being able to make that move, possibly, but I don't think it'll be a high rewarding transfer, if that makes sense. Yeah. I don't think swapping your 4.5 defenders, when realities I'll probably sit on the bench, is going to be a top priority for a lot of people.
Agree. FPL River asks, what do we think of Bernardo Silva as an alternative to Foden? So you mentioned you probably want to get on Man City soon. Is Bernardo someone you'd ever consider?
Yeah, possibly, because what I've noticed, I think for the last 7 or 8 game weeks, he's played 90 minutes in every one.
Yeah,
which is a big plus. I think he's getting into some good positions, more so than before. So yeah, I think I would consider him. I think at the moment I probably prefer Diogo Jota over him. They're similarly priced, aren't they? Yeah. So, but yeah, I think he's an option. I think I prefer him to Gundogan, and I just think I like him as a player. I really like Bernardo, and I think he's been excellent this season. And I think Pep's recognised that, and I think that's why he's played so many matches. So, yeah, I think for $1 million less, he's worth consideration. But I wouldn't write off Foden. I think those that got Foden keep him, and I still think he's a good option to bring in.
Cool. Question off Lorenz van Kersbill. How will the return of Lukaku input the output of the fullbacks is a really good question, actually. Is the switch from Rudy still viable with the fixtures to come if you own one of the backs? So, I've been thinking potentially, I'm probably not going to do it, but Rudiger to James. But that return of Lukaku, so he was on the bench this evening. I'm not sure if he's on. I think the game has just started now. I'm not sure if he'll be coming on or not, but it is interesting because when Lukaku was playing, Chelsea weren't scoring many goals, and as soon as he came, as soon as he went out of the side, they beat Norwich 7-0, if we remember, and haven't really stopped scoring since. What are your thoughts there?
I don't know. I'm not sure we've got enough data to decide that, because his first game, I think Reece James got a goal and assist, and Lukaku looked brilliant away at Arsenal. So they look good away at Spurs as well, particularly second half. I think Lukaku's world class, and probably what's more likely to happen is he will benefit from the delivery of the likes of Reece James.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's a bad thing, Lukaku coming back, personally.
Okay.
Although I actually think Havertz has done okay, particularly as a 9. I think he wasn't brilliant the weekend by all accounts, but I think his movement's been good. I think he's allowed others to shine as well. So I think he's done a decent job stepping in for Lukaku.
We've answered all the questions about Antonio and 541. We just had one in the chat. FPL Dream. I've gone with Son and Kane and have Trent, Cancelo and James. Would you consider Son down to Jota and then Matip to Chilwell, or would that be too late? And similarly, Deanne Lawson asks on Twitter, the form of Kane and Son hasn't been impressive of late. Internationals aside, is the wise move to avoid both, or do you think they will come good? So I suppose the question we're asking is, even though the fixtures are pretty good for Spurs, especially, I don't think I can see much away to Burnley. They may get something, but those two back-to-back ones.
Isn't Tarkowski and Westwood out?
They are. They're injured.
That's a big plus.
They're banned, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Kane has done all right at Burnley historically. I remember a hat-trick he got there. I remember a few goals he's got there. So I don't know. I think there's another week and another couple of games. So Burnley are conceding goals and conceding chances. And so, I don't know. I've got my fingers crossed for Kane this week.
So in terms of if you didn't have Kane or Son now, and you had the funds or whatever else to bring one in this week, regarding the bias, ignoring the bias that you already got Kane in your team, would you go for Kane or Son this week, do you think? Or neither?
Again, it depends which players you're taking out. So it's a really difficult question. If you had Vardy, for example, you're not going to take him out versus Watford at home.
Yeah,
I don't. So if you had Aubameyang, are you going to take him out versus Newcastle at home? Probably not.
Yeah.
So it depends who you're taking out and what fixture they've got to give you that answer. I think Kane will score well over the next 3 or 4 game weeks, and I'm pleased that I've got him. Son, I'm not so sure. I think he did all right. He's a bit unlucky at the bar. But the reason I like the Kane move more is I just think it gives you that route to Ronaldo or Lukaku, and we're getting a week closer to when you're probably going to want to set up like that. So yeah, it just depends who you're taking out, because I wouldn't take out Vardy or Aubameyang this week.
Yeah, and just to add on Son, so I watched Spurs really carefully on the weekend, and Son wasn't advanced as I'd hoped he'd be. Kane was by far the more advanced, for the majority of the game, and Son was coming deep a lot of the time, which he doesn't normally do. Just to add to that as well, I'm sure Son took Spurs, I think it was their 68th corner of the season. So a big thing for me with Son is that he is on corners and free kicks. They haven't scored any goals off corners this season with his 68th corner. So some could say...
But he's on corners. So
he's on corners. So some could say he's due, or some could say then it doesn't really matter. But,
some could say he's crap at corners. Some could say he's crap
at corners, exactly. Just a couple in the chat. Let's just have a look. And Anthony Chung, which one would you prioritise between second Chelsea wing-back and Jota? So I'm assuming you're going to say Jota there, Adam, because that's going to be a transfer probably, yeah.
How I'm set up at the moment, I've got Rudiger. So if it's I'm going to go with Jota. But if I didn't have, Oh, that's a really tough one because I think Chelsea will keep going strong. I don't think there's much in it at all. I think if I would I do, I'm not going to do Rudiger to James this week. So yeah, again without seeing the team, it's tough to answer because I think both will do well. I think it depends. Just to answer the question, to give a fair answer, it depends who you're replacing. So let's say I've got Havertz this week who's likely injured. Havertz to Jota is a better move for me than Rudiger to James, I think. But it could be that you've got a really premium, not premium, but really midfield looks great for fixtures. You might have Gallagher, Smith Rowe, Rafinha, and Salah, or whatever. It looks really good for this week. And your defence, you may be playing Loughton or somebody. Then I could see that move would add more value. So I think it depends on who you're taking out and who you're getting rid of, because that will give a bit more of a flow. Because I think they'll both do well, but it just depends which is the bigger upgrade.
I think as well it depends. Like, I'm tempted to do, I've got a good team this week, but I'm tempted to do Rudiger to James. But then I'm very worried about not having the Kane Ronaldo price point in place for game week 14 onwards. And that's the reason probably I'm not going to make that change, is because I think it's probably more pressing for me to be able to get that team structure in place to be able to get to Kane or Ronaldo if I really want to. So I'm saving the transfer back for that. And again, it's to your point, it's team dependent in it, in terms of not only who you're taking out, but also what your plans are. Because if I do Rudiger to James, it then means I'll probably have to take a -4 or -8 to get to Kane in game week 14. Whereas if I save, which is my current plan, obviously I can hopefully get to it for free potentially. But yeah, all interesting stuff. And thank you so much, everyone, for sending in your questions. Okay, we're going to look at the results now for the predictions for game week 12. And
I had a shocker.
Actually, you weren't that bad. The algorithm had a shocker. Only scored 3 points. You scored 7 points, and I scored 8 points.
Good one.
And what that means for the league overall is that I'm now top of the prediction league with 18 points. The algorithm has got 17 and you've got 15, so it's incredibly close. But the reason I haven't shown the slide yet was because I pulled off the algorithm stats for this game week.
Yeah.
And one of the predicted results shocked me to my...
Oh, I know which one you're going to say.
Shocked me to my core. And I had to go back and check it all, but it is right. But let's have a look. Hang on. Oh, I've got it on bloody screen now. 1 second. And here it is. So the algorithm's predictions for this weekend, it predicts Arsenal to beat Newcastle 3-2, Palace to beat Villa 3-1, Liverpool to beat Southampton only 2-1 interestingly, but then Southampton have been quite tight, haven't they? Norwich against Wolves 2-1 Wolves. Brighton and Leeds away win 2-1. Brentford to beat Norwich 3-2. Brentford to beat Everton 3-2, which I hope is right, because hopefully Mbomo and Tony will be in the points. Spurs to beat Burnley away 2-1. Leicester 2, Watford 3. Man City only to beat West Ham 2-1. But look at this one down the bottom. I can't even say it. Chelsea 6, Man United 0. Right? So I adjusted the game week range to go back another 2 game weeks just to see what it would do, and it was still 5-1. But this just shows how dominant Chelsea have been attacking recently, and more importantly, how dreadful United have been recently in defence. So the predictor predicts Chelsea 6-0, which I don't think either of us will be predicting. But that's the baseline there, Adam. So let's go through your predictions for this week. So if you want to go through first, Arsenal, Newcastle to start off with.
This is okay. So I think Arsenal will win. Do I think Newcastle will score under Eddie Howe? Possibly. I think they've looked okay. So I am going to go with a 2-1 Arsenal win.
I'm going to do the same there, 2-1 to Arsenal. I think that's right. Palace and Villa.
Well, I was impressed with Villa the weekend. How their shape defensively and out of possession, and where they let Brighton have the ball. And I think everything I've seen with Gerrard, I think we're going to be very, very difficult to break down. But I think we might struggle to score. So I'm either, do I go 0-0 or 1-1? Do you know what? I'm going to back a Villa win.
I'm sure you are.
I predicted a 2-0 win for Villa last week. So
you did.
there's so much I like about Gerrard at the moment. And I can't back against it. I think Palace has stuttered a little bit defensively against Burnley. And I think Villa will keep a clean sheet. So although I'm starting Gallagher, but that's
also 1-0 Villa.
1-0 Villa, yeah.
Okay, I will go for 1-1. I think it's going to be a really, really good game. Liverpool Southampton. What do you think that's going to
go? I think Liverpool will win 2-0.
I'm going to go 3-0 for that one. Norwich and Wolves.
This is okay. 1-1.
1-1 Norwich and Wolves. I am tempted to say the same actually. I think 0-0. Again, a bit of a scrap.
Okay.
Brighton and Leeds.
So Brighton last season had the better of Leeds twice, and so I think they beat them 1-0, didn't they, at Elland Road, and then they beat them 2-0 at home, and they just outplayed them in both games. So I don't know if it's a case that Potter has just got the better of Bielsa in terms of how they set up, or Brighton cope with it quite well with the man-to-man marking system. So I'm going to go for, although I thought Leeds played quite well against Spurs, that should be the caveat to that. I'm going to go for 2-0 Brighton.
2-0 Brighton. Okay, I think that probably Brighton haven't looked as good recently as they have, and I thought Leeds were good against Spurs. It's just obviously lack of personnel there for them. So I think I'm gonna go 2-1 Brighton. Brentford and Everton should be a cracker according to the Algo.
Yeah, well, I think Everton have got half their team out, haven't they?
Yeah.
So
Damari Gray's going to be out as well now, isn't he?
Yeah,
and Richarlison's banned.
So Brentford will surely be targeting this for a win. But I'm gonna go for 2-2.
I'm gonna go for 2-1 Brentford. Burnley and Spurs.
I think Spurs will win this. By how many though? I'm gonna go. Do you know what? I'm gonna go. I think we'll see a few goals in this. I'm going to go 3-1 Spurs.
I was going to go 3-2 Spurs. So,
I think there's been a few goals in the Burnley games recently. Yeah. So,
Leicester and Watford.
I think Leicester will get back on track, and I think they will win 2-0.
2-0 for Adam for Leicester Watford. I am going to go. I don't see. I'm going to go 2-2. No, I'm not. I'm going to go for a Watford away win 2-1. Man City and West Ham.
I think it's a tough game for Man City, and I'm going to go 2-1 Man City.
2-1 Man City. West Ham I say they faulted. They beat Liverpool 4-1 the week before. I think I can see a few goals in this game. I'm thinking of benching Antonio, but I think West Ham might score. But I'm going to go for 3-1 Man City. And finally, Chelsea United. Are you going 6-0?
Tempted. I mean,
what's that?
No, I think if Solskjaer was there, I could see the logic in that. Yeah. So I'll cut the algorithm some slack. I'm going to go for. Do you know what? I'm going to go 1-1.
1-1.
I think. Yeah. I just
Not
think.
For me, mate.
Yeah.
Not for me.
I'm going to go 1-1.
I think they're awful at the back. I think United are still an absolute mess. I know they won this evening 2-0 away, which is a good result in all fairness. You can't.
Is Varane? Oh no, Maguire. Hang on, I'm going to revise that prediction. I forgot Maguire's out. Is Varane out?
He's still out for a week or two, I think. Yeah.
I actually ignore everything I've just said. That's. I was going new. Yeah, well, I don't think I'll go 6-0, but I'll go 3-1 Chelsea. I think United will score.
I'm going to go 4-1 Chelsea. Fancy to give them a bit of a pasting. They're just on form, and United are just an absolute mess at the back. So yeah, okay, we will take a look at how that does next week. Okay, let's have a look at the best captain for game week 13. We put a poll out earlier on Fantasy Football Hub at FFH_HQ. Salah, unsurprisingly, took 84% of the vote. Kane, 6%, Reece James, 6%, and Aubameyang, 4%. I didn't put Vardy in, actually, to this one. I probably should put Vardy ahead of Reece James, in all fairness, but still massive. Salah, 84%. Is it even worth having the chat looking elsewhere, Adam?
Nah, let's move on. I think if you're going to go elsewhere, go for one of the big defenders, because that's another way that you would get effectively 5 premium or 4 premium defenders playing. But they've all got they've got United, West Ham, and Liverpool got Southampton. Trent's an option.
Trent is an option.
I think Trent is an option, actually, the way he's playing. But you're gonna have to be. I think so few people will be brave enough to captain a defender that I can't. 10 point whatever it is points per game. You'd have to be very brave to go against Salah or bet against him.
So I think what I mentioned earlier, around choosing your battles. So I think this game week and next game week is a really good example of where you've got the opportunity to choose your battles. So for this week, personally, my advice is just go with Salah. Unless you really want to go different, obviously. But if you're chasing a good rank, if you're playing the game to try and finish as high as you can, Salah is obviously the highest one. But next week is interesting because Kane and Son will be home to Brentford, and Brentford are conceding goals, and
fun, aren't they?
Salah's away to Wolves, who defensively have been all right. They kept a clean sheet last week, didn't they? When they won. So I think next week is potentially a time to gamble, but this week for me absolutely isn't the time to gamble. Just stick it on Salah. Okay, Adam, we've got your team up now. Do you want to run through your team and your plans for the coming game week 13?
Yeah, so got Sanchez in goal, Trent Cancelo, Rudiger and Chilwell, and then I've got Salah captain, Gallagher, Havertz, Rafinha, and then Tony and Kane up front. Hopefully Rafinha's illness will be fine. I really hope it is, because that would cause me possible issues. Because I've got the other issue I've got is I'd have been happy having Gray on the bench this week, but he's obviously injured. So my bench is looking a little bit weak now. So, which isn't ideal when we've got midweek games coming up afterwards. But my plan as of now is Havertz to Jota, nothing else. And then I think, let's face it, I said to you before, I don't get bench points anyway, so does it really matter if I've got duds on the bench? Probably not.
It doesn't.
I'm only getting a 1-pointer anyway. So
it actually helps you with your decisions as well. And this is the thing.
Exactly.
Every week, because you've only really got a strong 11 at the moment, it's actually helping you with, in decisions.
It's making it easier. And I said to you, my longer term plan will be probably save a transfer the week after and then do a move which allows me to get a third striker and a bench midfielder, because I think then coming up into the congested period, my squad's a bit stronger. But I've got the money at the moment. I've got the exact funds to do Havertz to Foden, but I think I prefer Jota to Foden because of what else the money allows me to do the extra 0.6 or whatever is 0.7 million.
Oh, you set it very well. Very jealous.
Whereas I don't know. I don't think my team's any. I think your team's as strong, if not better, than mine at the moment.
Yeah, no.
In terms of who you've got.
No, you've got Kane in place already. And
I think I like my structure. I like my structure, and it's taken a while to get to this type of setup, and
you played it well, and as usual, as you say yourself, as you admit yourself, once you've got your wild card out and played, you play FPL much better, and it's. I
think you're right. I think it was. I think you're absolutely right. That rash decision. It's really difficult to know whether it's helped or hindered me, or whether I've done better. And you can speculate because there's been certain things which, I think if I had a wild card later, I wouldn't have had the likes of Gallagher. So I may have gone stronger up front. Who knows? So yeah, I'm in an okay position at the moment, but I think, like you've said, it doesn't really matter what happens this week, but there's this bulk of fixtures coming up, and it's just about, if I get a red arrow this week, I get a red arrow this week. I'm not too worried. I've got my plan going forwards, and I think, hopefully it'd be nice to come out of the festive period, with a fairly decent rank. But I'm not too concerned about any particular game week.
Just say Chalobah has scored against Juventus, and I think it's a Rudiger assist.
He's on. Do you know what? I think anyone that's got Reece James, swap him for Rudiger. The man is in form. He's like, he's got. Do you know what? Though, on a serious note, the one thing, just a random point on Rudiger, he has actually got a bit of attacking threat. I think a lot of people think he's this defender that offers very little, but in open play, he's breaking forward like anything.
He's very marauding, isn't he?
Yeah, I quite like him. It's just the fact that Reece James and Chilwell have done so much that he's sort of a bit in the shadows. But it's a little bit. I think it's a little bit this season. Like with Liverpool when they had Robertson, Van Dijk, and Trent about 2 or 3 seasons ago, because it had been similar price levels, wouldn't they? And you got there's some really good options. So yeah, I think having 2 of them is a good idea.
Firetog asking about Jota, and we've seen a few earlier. Apparently Jota trained with Liverpool.
I saw that,
today, and is expected to be fit for the Champions League match tomorrow, of which we'll see anyway, won't we? So,
yeah, exactly. I think there's still always going to be a risk, because I think the likes of Minamino and Origi, is Origi fit? Is he injured? No, he's fit, isn't he? So yeah, I think there's still always that possibility of rotation, even with Jota now, but he only needs 15 minutes.
He does. Okay, moving on to my team then. So at the moment, I've got a 4-5-1, but I've got a decision to make. So I've got Sanchez in goals. I've got Trent, Chilwell, Cancelo, and Rudiger. I've got Salah, Son, Foden, Jota, and Mbomo to Everton. And Tony up front by himself at home terms. At the moment, I'm benching Antonio against Man City, even though apparently Antonio's record against Man City is very, very good. Apparently he scored more. I heard something earlier. I'm going to get this wrong, but it's something like he scored more goals against them than anyone else, or some bloody ridiculous stat like that. And Livramento second on my bench with Liverpool, which is fine. So the only decision I've really got is whether to start Mbomo or Antonio. What do you think?
I think you got a spot on. I think you'd be more annoyed. Let's say, and if you've got to look at this, you'd be more annoyed. Let's say, if Mbomo scored and did well, versus if Antonio played and did well. A lot of people will bench Antonio anyway, particularly after last week. A lot of people are selling him. I think you've got to back your boy Mbomo.
I am this week, so I'm playing 4-5-1.
I think you've got it spot on.
I'm going to save, and then I'll just see next week, because I don't even mind making a couple of transfers, to shift the team around, to potentially get to Kane. I'm not sure. I really don't know, but in terms of the team itself moving forward, I'm quite happy. I really hope I can go without Kane and Ronaldo. But like I say, it'll be the captaincy in game week 14, where Salah's away to Wolves and Kane's home to Brentford. That to me is a big game. I just think
United's fixtures from 16 onwards.
I know, they're unbelievable.
And not have Ronaldo. I mean,
yeah, and this is it, and and that's what I'll have to think about. But a lot will be, most managers will be getting rid of Kane to get to Ronaldo, probably yourself included. So yeah. I could just get rid of Son, and kind of
go straight
there, maybe. So just something to think of. It's just these 2 captaincy games for Sirs 10, 14 and 15 are worrying me. That's the only thing there. Okay. We've just got a quick ad. We've teamed up once again with FanTeam to bring you our fantastic offer and a chance to play FPL for big money for absolutely free. FanTeam's second half competition will be going live early in the new year from Gameweek 22. The game is the actual game itself now is live, in terms of you can go in and pick your teams and mess around. But from game week 22 onwards is when the game actually starts. It is completely free to enter, but has a £100,000 prize pool and a very cool £20,000 first prize. And like I say, it's fantasy football. It's basically FPL, but it is for free. There are some slight rule tweaks which you can see on site, but so to enter for absolutely free, just click the link in the description below to register, draft a team, and secure your place. Both Adam and I will be playing, and Hub contributor Holly Shand will be publishing a video tomorrow detailing the rules, scoring, and much, much more on this channel. So make sure to give it a watch. It's very easy to play. It's incredibly similar to FPL, but it is free, which is absolutely fantastic from FanTeam. So if you've never played FanTeam, you know, and you want to kind of know what it's all about, not only can you play for free, but you can potentially win 20 grand if you come first. So a bit of a no-brainer there. Well done to FanTeam, you know, for giving away that extraordinary amount of money. Competition time for our YouTube watchers. So firstly, our Game Week 12 winner, the top scorers were Tyrone Mings and Alexander Arnold, who both had 15 pointers. And Mitesh Patel actually picked Tyrone Mings. What a pick that is. So very well done, Mitesh. You have won our Fantasy Football Hub mug, which I will just show quickly in front of the camera. You have won a mug. Many congratulations, Mitesh. Drop me a DM and we will sort that out for you. For this week's competition and for a chance to win one of our fantastic Fantasy Football Hub mugs, you need to like this video. So please make sure you press like. Make sure you are subscribed if you aren't already. And then comment on who you think will be the top point scorer in Game Week 13. So Adam, looking at all those predictions and fixtures now, who do you think will be the top point scorer in Game Week 13?
Most of the time it tends to be a defender who's got a goal and a clean sheet. So I've just looked at, I'm going to go for, I'm going to go for Lewis Dunk.
Lewis Dunk, it's a good shout. I'm going to go completely rogue on this one, and I'm going to go for Christian Pulisic for Chelsea. So
good shout.
He came on and scored. I don't know if he'll start, but with Havertz injured, with Lukaku potentially not fit, he has a chance of starting. And I know that Tuchel was bigging him up in the week, so I'm going to try Pulisic against Man United. Best of luck to anyone who does enter. Let's have a look at our mini league after Game Week 12 at FFH Green Arrow Mini League. In 10th place, Alexander von Sivers. In 9th place, Nawin Tamong. 8th, Charlie Vant. 7th, Shane Lidley. 6th, Torhey Hegner. 5th, Ed Gilbard. 4th, Steve Stedman. 3rd, Harry Jones. 2nd, Joe Widowson. And still top, Richard Sopf, who's up to 906 points. 25th overall in FPL, so very, very well played. All 10 of you, especially to Richard, say he's absolutely smashed it. Joe is actually level on points as well after an 84-point game week, but very well played indeed. Make sure you join our mini league. There will be a Fantasy Football Hub goodie bag prize and free premium membership to the winner at the end of the season. I have just popped the mini league code now in the chat, so make sure you copy and paste that. Our YouTube watchers can join using the auto join link in the description below too. So that is it from us for this week. Adam, thank you so much as usual. Really enjoy these kind of macro chats around
it's good fun.
Skill versus luck last week, and FOMO and managing bad weeks this week. I'm sure we'll do something in the coming weeks as well. Just so everyone knows, obviously, because the next few deadlines are quite tight, Adam and I are going to have to work out a bit of a plan of when we can do, because we are determined to try and get a Green Arrow pod out prior to each game week. They may be a little bit maybe shorter than normal, but we are determined to try and get one out. So at the moment, maybe looking at maybe next Monday night, but we will confirm on Twitter what we will do there. So keep an eye out and make sure you follow us on all that stuff. Adam, where can people find you?
On Twitter, Hopcroft 13.
Okay, so this podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel with the podcast versions available on all major podcast platforms. If you liked what you watched, please press the like button and remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. You can also follow me just under my picture here on YouTube at FFH_Fergi. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok are at FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Green Arrow, so make sure you drop us a follow. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you'll find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, points predictions tools, and much, much more to join the tens of thousands of other fantasy managers. Sign up to the Hub, choose all our amazing resources. Just click the top link in the description below. You will not regret it. We'll be back streaming and podding next week. Twice due to midweek game week 14. Likely maybe Monday and Thursday, but we will confirm this. In the meantime, stay safe and may all your arrows be green. Good night all.